Are you here now? Good morning. Oh, what a way to start our day together. Thank you so much to Claire and Jennifer. My name is the Reverend Greta Seidohl. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve here as the assistant minister, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here this morning on this rainy, almost feels like fall, I dare say, morning. Thank you for being here, for choosing to spend your morning to gather in community, to call in community and call forth our best selves. We are in the midst of the summer speaker series in which members and friends of the Fountain Street community are invited to share what they are passionate about, to share stories from their life and their time with Fountain Street Church. And this morning we have the honor of hearing from John Schweitzer, a longtime member of the Fountain Street community. I saw something in the bio about you've counted the number of times you've sung with the choir.
1,500.
1,500? Yeah, go ahead. That's okay. So my dear thanks to John for being here this morning and for dragging his whole family into the musical portion of the service. There was no dragging. There was willful appearing. Thank you. Either way for being here. We'll hear more from them in a bit. Whomever you are, wherever you are on this life's journey, know that you are welcome here. And it is in that spirit of welcome that I share this invitation to worship titled, "Come Sit by Our Fire" by Jennifer Kitchen. Come sit by our fire and let us share stories. Let me hear your tales of far-off lands, wanderer, and I will tell you of my travels. Share your experiences of the holy with me, worshiper, and I will tell you that which I find divine. Come and stay, lover of leaving, for ours is no caravan of despair, but of hope. We would hear your stories of grief and sorrow as readily as those of joy and laughter. For there is a time and a place and a hearing for all the stories of this world. Stories are the breath and word of the Spirit of life, the power that we name love. Come, for our fire is warm and we have seats for all. Come again and yet again. Come, speak to me of what fills your heart, what engages your mind, and what resides in your soul. Come, let us worship together. Come and sing with me a good song. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our gathering hymn 101, Abide with Me.
from a heartful book called Little Weirds by Jenny Slate. She says, "My vulnerability is natural and permissible and beautiful to me, and it should remind you of your responsibility to behave like a friend to me and the world." And a translation of Hafiz by Daniel Lendinsky. You carry all the ingredients to turn your life into a nightmare. Don't mix them. You have all the genius to build a swing in your backyard for God. That sounds like a hell of a lot more fun. Let's start laughing, drawing blueprints, gathering our talented friends. I will help you with my divine lyre and drum. Hafiz will sing 1,000 words you can take into your hands like golden saws, silver hammers, polished teakwood, strong silk rope. You carry all the ingredients to turn your existence into joy. Mix them. Mix them. And also from Hafiz. The seed cracked open. It used to be that when I would wake in the morning, I could with confidence say, "What am I going to do?" That was before the seed cracked open. Now I am certain there are 2 of us housed in this body, doing the shopping in the market together, tickling each other while we prepare the evening food. Now, when I awake, all the instruments play the same music. God, what love mischief can we do for the world today?
I want to invite you into the spirit of prayer or meditation this morning. First, I want to invite you to find your body. Many of us might have rushed in here at the last minute, or maybe you've been here for a while and so you found a bit of a habitual movement. So I invite you to find intention in your body. Perhaps that means planting both feet firmly on the floor. If you're joining us at home from your couch, maybe that means readjusting within the pillows. If you're here or at home, I invite you to find your breath. Just because it happens automatically does not make it any less crucial or any less magical in the moment. As you find your body, bring your mind into this place. Press pause on all the worries, on the to-do lists, on whatever it was that you carried in here or into this shared sacred space. Let it be. Let your mind find quiet. And let your heart open to these words of prayer, a prayer of storytelling by Mandy McGlynn. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. We know so many stories about you. God, Lord, King, Father, Earth, Mother, Great Spirit, Universe, Holy Parent, Divine Love, Deepest Longings, Covenanted Partner. We know stories about our country, about our congregation, too, of the values we claim as a people. We have stories about those narratives, about how our values have and have not manifested in our reality. Blessed One, we also know so many stories about ourselves. Some of them the same stories we tell about others. Beautiful, ugly, simple, difficult, joyous, useful, worthless. Stories about who we are, what we know, and the potentials and impossibilities of our future. Stories about our purpose and the meanings of our lives. We have countless stories buried too deep in our souls for us to even recognize them. God of discovery, help us find the strength to excavate those buried stories. Let us lean on one another as we brush them off, hold them up to the light, and find their meaning and use. May our roots nourish us so that we might grow abundantly and flower into blessings for one another and the world. Above all, Holy Parent, sing us a gentle lullaby. In the trees and the wind, in the kind words of our neighbors, in the warmth of the sun and the sparkle of the snow, whisper to us the truest story you know, and sing to us in notes that we can never unhear. Remind us every day, every moment, that we are beloved, beloved, beloved. May it be so. Amen. Blessed be. Beloveds, we tell a story together. John is going to share stories with us in just a moment here. But there is another way that we tell stories, and that is the way in which we enact them, that we live them out in our daily lives through the actions that we take. The offering is one such story. The offering is a way that we tell the story of our interconnection, that we tell the story of the way that we wish the world to be as we act it into being through our generosity of spirit and our generosity of funds. I invite you to give as generously as you can. The offering will now be gratefully and graciously received to the tune of some more beautiful belovedness.
This is so cool. I love this. I love it. I love the summer services. I like to sit up front, house left, with any choir members who show up. I like to hear lay people tell their story of their spiritual journey and what Fountain Street means to them. Today I want to tell you what Fountain Street means to me by sharing a bit of what I've learned from some of our past leaders. Duncan Littlefair, David Rankin, Sue Cinnamon, Bruce Bodie, Don Hoekstra, and two musical directors, Beverly Howerton and Jim Culver. But first, let me tell you why I came to Fountain Street. I was soon to be married, and my fiancée said she wanted to get married in the beautiful sanctuary of Fountain Street Church. I suggested we go to a service and check it out. I was a little apprehensive. I pictured an old, dark, cold church with a sparse, liberal congregation. Boy, was I wrong. It turned out to be a vibrant congregation, 1,000 pledging units, and a choir 50 strong, with 3 articulate ministers. We sat in the balcony near the choir loft, and the choir sang so beautifully that after church, I called up Beverly Howerton, the choir director, and asked him if I could join. He said yes. One Sunday, a few months later, Fountain Street was to hold a new member's book signing ceremony. I found Duncan in the narthex and announced to him I was going to sign the book. He looked at me with a big smile and said, "That's great. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you at this amazing church." A short time later, I attended the new members' luncheon served on Lenox china. There were Fountain Street staff and some older members at the luncheon. It was a warm welcome to this church community. I was honored to be a part of it. Duncan hired Beverly Howerton right out of Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey, the year after I was born, 1952. Coincidentally, I went to choir camp at Westminster when I was in high school. Beverly was our organist and choir director for 40 years until he retired at 65. He introduced us to all kinds of music and music experiences. Beverly was well connected in the music world. He collaborated with Dave Brubeck and had the choir learn Brubeck's oratorio from his manuscript. We performed it in the sanctuary with Brubeck and his quartet, or trio. George said it was a trio. So. Then it was published as Light in the Wilderness. Beverly started a tradition of performing an oratorio or major musical work once a year on Palm Sunday. One of those works was a work he commissioned from Adrian Sweats and Jack Kimmel, who were members here. They wrote Magic in the Heart of the Universe. Chris Creek, my ex-wife, was singing soprano and was carrying Jennifer at the time, and Jennifer learned the whole thing in utero. The choir has performed that work several times. During Bev's tenure, the choir went on 2 European tours. We sang Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, and Karl Orff on the DeVos Hall stage. When we sang Beethoven's Ninth, Chris was pregnant with Ben. During the performance, she stood next to the timpani, and every time the timpani went off, Ben would kick. So they were all learning all this stuff, this music, before they were breathing. So, and then we also sang Karl Orff's Carmina Burana with the ballet. Oh, and every Christmas we sang the Nutcracker. The women sang the Nutcracker for the ballet. But that was not enough for Bev. He then arranged for us to go to New York, where we joined with other choirs to sing Mozart's Requiem on the stage at Carnegie Hall. I didn't go because I sang there twice with the Rutgers University Choir. And it cost a bundle to go. Duncan Littlefair was the Fountain Street senior minister for 40 years. Advent was always a big deal at Fountain Street. When I try to explain Fountain Street to people, I tell them that we came out of the Protestant tradition. And no better Protestant tradition is there than Christmas. Duncan loved Christmas and wanted to celebrate it for the entire month of December. Duncan and Bev were discussing how to stretch Christmas into 4 weeks. Duncan wanted to celebrate 4 qualities of Christmas, one each week. He said the first 3 were a no-brainer. We can use faith, hope, and love from Paul's description of love in the New Testament. But what about the 4th quality? Beverly offered joy, and a new ritual and tradition had been created. A few days before Christmas, the choir would go caroling. We would go to the homes of retired choir members and other seniors of the church. After caroling, we would go to Duncan's house for a warm and cozy caroling party. Duncan would sit in his easy chair by the fireplace with his dog Fudge at his feet, and we would sing him his favorite carols. Duncan would lean back in his chair, close his eyes, and listen. It was a very special time for Duncan and the choir. Duncan's theme was, "This is indeed a day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." After Bev left, Jim Culver was hired as the minister of music. Like Bev before him, Jim played organ and also directed the choir. Jim was a brilliant musician. He composed and published many choral works. He also composed a complete oratorio that the choir performed at a memorial concert. It was entitled En Mass and was patterned after Bernstein's Mass, each section a different style. Jim loved the high school choir, and they loved him. He challenged them with hard music and foreign languages and named them Ars Nova, which means new art in Latin. Jim took the choir to competitions all over the country and Canada. Ars Nova would blow the other competitors out of the water and always came home with trophies. We had to get a trophy case in the choir room to hold them all. It was a good experience for the kids, and it helped them coalesce as a choir and grow personally. It was an important part of life for me and my 2 kids. When Jim suddenly had to leave, he asked me if I would lead the Ars Nova, and I said yes. Jennifer, Ben, and now Claire are singing and involved in music. Claire started in Ars Nova when she was 11, and she started the senior choir at 14. David Rankin was minister for 15 years after Duncan. He had a file with 52 folders in it. These were old-fashioned folders before, made out of paper and in a cabinet. There was one folder for every Sunday of the year. As David would come across items that he wanted to talk about, he would add them to various folders. David called himself a wordsmith. He wrote 3 drafts of his sermon, rehearsed it, and edited it for meter. One Saturday, I was at Rankin's house helping Ginger set up her darkroom. I walked past the family room and peered in. I saw David in his sweats, sitting on the sofa with his sermon in his lap, watching the basketball game. At one time, I worked in the sound room, where Cliff is, when sound was all there was. There was no video. Beverly had me mixing down the hour and 15-minute Sunday services into 45-minute radio shows. I had to listen to snippets of David's sermons over and over again as part of the editing process. I came to realize that when I listened to David's sermons, I had to listen to the beginning, the middle, and the end to figure out what he was talking about. Duncan, on the other hand, you could pick randomly any spot on the tape and get the gist of the whole sermon. kind of like every cell in the body has the complete DNA description of the entire body. Duncan would think about his sermon on his commutes from Caledonia, and then on Sunday, deliver them extemporaneously. One day, David stopped by the sound room and announced the next Sunday's sermon was going to be a poem. Next week rolled around, and when I was editing the radio show, I didn't notice any difference in the sermon. When I saw David, I asked him, "What happened? You said your sermon was going to be a poem." He said, "It was." It turns out all of David's sermons were poems. His theme was, "Love is the sum of all theology." The best sermon I remember David ever giving wasn't a sermon at all. David and Ginger put on a skit in which David had been implanted with an embryo and Ginger was the surgeon. When David wakes up, he goes through the shock and dismay of finding out he's pregnant. He demands the surgeon take it out. Ginger says, "Tough luck, the state demands that you are to be pregnant." With the roles reversed, it was an effective way for me to see I wouldn't want anybody messing with my body and my life. Don Hoekstra was Fountain Street's executive minister, in charge of many parts of the church, including finances, fundraising, etc. Don was a brilliant teacher. He also was a fine preacher, but he often said that he was frightened to be standing behind the Fountain Street pulpit. Maybe because he attended Christian schools in West Michigan where he heard about stories about Fountain Street. Don led a class on Sunday mornings before church service on the subject of Bible for liberals. The class was a huge success and had over 100 people in attendance. Reverend Sue Cinnamon was hired in 1990 as Minister of Religious Education. As Fountain Street's first female minister, she organized a lot of women's retreats and women's spirituality groups within the church community. Many of the women's spiritual groups are still meeting today. Sue also brought with her some of Unitarian religious traditions, such as Joys and Concerns, which she integrated into the high school youth program. She encouraged the exploration of Christian and other religious stories in the Character School program. Many of Sue's teachings still continue. Bruce Bodie was Fountain Street's associate minister for 22 years. He served in many roles during those years. I enjoyed Bruce. We were the same age, had 2 children, and were on similar life paths. Bruce valued rituals and liked creating new ones. One Sunday, Bruce sat down with me in the social hall after church and asked me if I would help him with a service. He was planning to celebrate Reverence for Life, a phrase coined by Albert Schweitzer. It would be in the spring, and he was going to talk about the Green Man, who was a wild man that came out of the forest one day a year and was honored by the village people. The Green Man has many names. He could be Swamp Man, trailing clouds of seaweed, the Jolly Green Giant, growing food, or the Trickster, just to name a few. Bruce wanted me to dress up in a green costume with leaves and flowers on it and walk down the aisle throwing flower blossoms. I told him I would do it. It sounded right up my alley. I had to cut part of the story where Margie Dirks was the Green Woman and the costume she made and how I dumped forsythia on Bruce's head in the pulpit. A year later, Bruce wanted to fine-tune the service and moved it up to Earth Day. Over the years, we added the creation story, which Heather Palmer supervised, and blessing of the animals. And I got a whole lot of stories about that, but I had this big snake I would bring. And then when the snake was gone, I'm adding. After the snake was gone, still had snake food left over, so I brought in a rat, and I showed it to Fred, and Fred goes, "What do you have, John?" I said, he asked me what the name was, and there was no name for the food, so I just said lunch. And then he had this little prayer, this little blessing. He said, "May you be blessed and give joy, or may you get joy and be blessed like the joy and blessings that you have given us," which he said to the rat. And then after I got rid of the rats, then it's Reverence for Life Sunday, and I'm looking through the refrigerator and I see this jar that has 3 kinds of mold in it. There was green and blue. It's amazing what you find. So I said, "Oh, that's life." So I bring it in. I stand in line. I get up to Fred, and I hold it up. And he says, "Now what do you got, John?" And I go, "It's mold," and he blesses the mold. Okay. So I've been blessed by these leaders, and what I've learned is 4 things that 4 things. Music is important to Fountain Street Church services. Fountain Street members seem to enjoy studying the Bible. Religion is not static. It needs to change with the times. We can create new rituals and myths to fit our new understanding of the world and hold on to the ones that give us meaning and connection. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, to know the most ancient is to know the Tao. Oh, and there's one more. Oh, the church cannot take political action, no matter how righteous. We want the church to be a house of prayer for all people. If the church is pro-choice, we exclude those who don't agree. Members within the church can organize and take action, but not the church. I came to this church for the music and stayed for the theology. I leave you with these words from David Rankin. Freedom is the ground of all vital activity. Faith without freedom is dogma. Love without freedom is an illusion. Justice without freedom is oppression. In every instance, freedom is the factor that sustains and completes the other goal. It is the oxygen of the human spirit, the indispensable element for growth and wholeness. Thank you to the Religious Services Committee for my opportunity to look back on some of these 42 years I've been here, and I hope you enjoyed the ride.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in our sending hymn number 106, Who Would True Valor See? Again, number 106, Who Would True Valor See? be seated. One brief announcement before I send us on our way to remind you to mark your calendars for next Sunday at 11 o'clock. No.
10 o'clock.
No, I know service is at 10 o'clock. That part I got. There's a picnic. My brain. Okay, there is a picnic, the last of the summer picnics hosted by the Community Corners. It will be at Palmer Park next Sunday. All ages are encouraged to come. Bring your own snack. Enjoy some summer weather right now. It still looks like it should be good summer weather next Sunday. So we hope that you'll join at Palmer Park next Sunday afternoon. Related to service time, however, thank you, John, I encourage you to check your emails for some updates on the fall worship plans and ways to engage and be a part of that process. That process will only be possible if folks like you participate in making it happen. So I do encourage you to check your email and find ways that you can engage as part of that. Once again, thank you to John, to John's family, and to Phil Fletcher. Thank you so much for your music and for being with us today. Oh, and Jack. I'm sorry, Jack. Hi, Jack. We also had the wonderful Jack with us. Thank you. I'm sorry. Yes, there's so many beautiful musicians. Thank you all. Thank you, all of you. All right. I want to send us on our way this evening with this reading by Victoria Weinstein, ever so slightly adapted, titled "The Church is a Body." The church is a body. May this body breathe and be together in the spirit of hope. May it feel held by comfort. Those who seek consolation, may they find it in the solace of this moment. The church is a body. It is as strong as all the people who have ever gathered within its walls. It is the power that they have dreamed and all that they have done. The church is a body. It is as vulnerable as the most newborn, as untried as its members. It is ancient and it is ever new. The church is a story. It is the story of lives that are interwoven, brought together in this place and in this time for the simple purposes of caring for one another and helping one another along the arduous path from birth to death. The church is a vision. It is a vision of unity and diversity. It is a vision of reverence for all creation. It is a vision that beckons us beyond the concerns of our own skins. As we journey forward in this gathering, from this gathering, may we abide as one body in the spirit of faith, hope, and love that is the story and the vision of this church as it is and is yet to be. May it be so. Blessed be. Have a beautiful week.